Hey, what's up, guys? This is Big Z, and you are listening to the Natural Order Podcast. Guys, today I want to talk to you, my fellas, right, about being that safe nigga. You get what I'm saying? Being that safe dude, being that one that never really challenges himself. You get what I'm saying? Give me 1 second. Let me take a swig. And being that one that has an idea of what he want to do, he talks about it a lot, but he doesn't really take the steps to get there. You understand what I'm saying? And this is a mindset that plagues us. You understand what I'm saying? Because so many of us have so much potential to do a lot of things in life, but there's always that what if factor. You understand what I'm saying? There's always that, well, what if it don't work out? What's going to be my backup plan? And I remember having conversations with my dad and um, other people about things that I wanted to do in life, especially in high school, after high school, um, going on to college. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be an NFL running back, right? I played ball, right? I played Pop Warner high school ball, right? But I'm 5'7", 165, 170 pounds, right? I wanted to be a running back, you know what I mean? And my quote unquote idol was Emmett Smith, right? But I sort of made it known, right? But not really. I didn't force the issue to my coaches growing up in school. I went in Pop Warner and in high school, right? I didn't force the issue. They've already had some people. I didn't challenge who they had at these positions, right? I just was, let the chips fall wherever they fell, right? And ultimately I ultimately let the coaches decide the position for me rather than doing the work and vocalizing what I wanted to do. And ultimately, I ended up playing uh, center. Like Pop Warner, I was pretty average build, but when I got to high school, right, especially my senior year, I'm like the smallest dude on the field playing the biggest position on the field. So I wasn't a punk. I wasn't afraid, right? I wasn't afraid in that sense. I had heart. You understand what I'm saying? But I think I placed a lot of limitations on things, right? Like I said, I didn't challenge who the running backs were. I wasn't in a weight room. I wasn't running drills and doing the work that was required of me to be what I wanted to be and to do what I wanted to do. You understand what I'm saying? And that safe mindset, it plagued me. You know what I mean? Because it made me afraid to follow what it is that I wanted to do. And I let people place their expectations on me. You know what I mean? I grew up with, you know, not in a two-parent household. My mom and dad was divorced, and I grew up, as many of us do, um, with my mom. I've always had access to my dad, right? I wasn't necessarily a mama's boy, um, like that. I've always wanted to be, you know, a good dude. You know what I mean? But in my quest to be a good dude, I became extremely safe, right? Conversations with, my dad made me think more about the consequences of things rather than go forth and conquer what it is that you want to do. You understand what I'm saying? And so it, it followed me. It followed me, right? Follow me through school. Even when I started after school, when I started looking for work, college, all this stuff, right? This afraid mindset followed me, right? And I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. You understand what I'm saying? And I was conditionally accepted to um, Arizona State. Conditionally accepted, right? And there was these requirements that they needed me to do that I didn't go forward with. Now, who knows if I would have gotten accepted or not? But because of it, because of me not following through, you understand what I'm saying? I didn't, I that's left up to, you know, uh, that was left unaccomplished, I'll say. You get what I'm saying? And who knows what could have happened had I got accepted. You know what I'm saying? But me being so afraid of what the outcome might be, one of the things I was afraid of was moving away to Arizona, not knowing anybody, not knowing anything, right? Being afraid to take that step. Wanted to stay close to home, which in a way it was pretty close to home, just one state over. I'm here in California, right? Or a couple states over, but that mindset of being afraid, that mindset of not really conquering or wanting to, or understanding how to go forth and conquer. You get what I'm saying? And kind of conversations that I've had with people always left me more so in doubt of what could possibly happen. Like I said, as opposed to um, you're going to do great. Go ahead. You gotta experience these things. You gotta get out there and try and figure it out. You understand what I'm saying? And so um, I didn't follow through with it. You understand what I'm saying? So this is how it followed me. I ended up going to a college. Um, Never got my BA. I got an associate's degree, 2-year degree, right? Um, College is now closed down now. Heald College in San Francisco. Ended up getting an administrative or a bachelor or an associate in business administration, and ended up doing that. Okay, took me what 3.5, 4 years because it was supposed to take you what 2 years to get an associate's degree, but I quit midway. Uh, and then I got um, involved with someone. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but um, I quit to start working. Um, I didn't know, I didn't feel like I can complete it. It was taking too long. I was getting impatient, and I had a another job that I wanted to see what I was making. What the time? Shit, I was making what 10.50, 11.50 an hour. You understand what I'm saying? And I figured I would pursue, since that is a guaranteed thing, I just do that. So again, here's that mindset coming back into play of me not really wanting or not really pushing myself. You get what I'm saying? And I ended up, like I said, I ended up dead finishing, but it took me a lot longer. You get it? And right after that, I was working at a daycare, not a daycare. Well, I guess you can call it a daycare, but it was a home for mentally disabled men. And I worked there for about 5 years while I finished um going to school and all this stuff. All right. After I got out of school, I had all these um options that I could have do that were presented to me. I'm not sure where Hill College got these set up interviews and all this stuff, but I never took one. Right, I figured I'll just do my own thing. Right, you know what I ended up doing? I ended up being uh, it's a college graduate working at uh, Walmart as a cashier. Right, that that mindset again of not wanting to go out and challenge myself. Right, I'm fresh out of college, fresh out of a 2 year bachelor or 2 year associate degree college. Right, felt like I could do a whole bunch of stuff, walk the stage, and I felt proud of myself, right? And I felt that I could do things, but I didn't. Like, they helped me, sent me on some interviews, um, gave me some other leads, set me up with people, but again, I never followed through with any of that stuff. And I ended up being a damn cashier at Walmart. All right. And it's so crazy because, well, I don't know if crazy is the word, but it's now that I'm looking back, it's so disheartening because I had all this potential, but I didn't use it. You get what I'm saying? And I wanted so much more. I wanted so much more. But I think that there was no one there to validate the things, to tell me, hey, yes, go in that direction, do this, do that, right? And so not having that, and then being afraid, I just, I quit on a lot of things, and I was afraid to stand up and vocalize and take action, right? But that mindset again followed me from working, from college, through school, through high school, and it followed me when I started looking for or becoming really interested in dating, right? You know what I mean? And no one, again, no one told me about being that safe dude that's not afraid. I mean, that is afraid to speak up. That is afraid to demand and say what they want and or work towards their goals, right? And so when it followed me through dating, right, um, I got ran over a lot. Like, no joke. I got ran over a lot. And me wanting to be that safe dude, I felt like um, I always wanted to do things in the correct manner, in the correct way, right? So that there's no bumps and there's no bruises as I took this journey. And I met this girl when I was in school, in college, when I was working at that mental care home for adult men, right? And having that mindset um, of not speaking up, trying to do right, trying to do good, you know, um, as we got to know each other and we progressed in our relationship, things like that. Um, I was in the mindset of, if I am intimate with this girl, once we got to that point, right, at some point I'm going to have to marry her. I'm going to have to make a bigger commitment. Why? Because I'm being intimate. I'm humbling her, I guess, right? For lack of a better term, when you humble a girl, that means you're taking her virginity. Obviously, she wasn't a virgin. At the time, I wasn't a virgin, but I guess in a sense, sex was, the lock and key, and it was the commitment that you make after you have humbled a woman, right? Which and it's supposed to be, but we're living in modern times, right? And it's not always that way. So as we progressed in our relationship, we became more intimate. We moved pretty damn fast, right? After 2 years, um, I'm proposing to her, right? And I don't know if she really wanted to do it. I think I was very convincing. Um, I don't even know if I really wanted to do it, but I felt like I should do it because, we're being intimate, right? And we went ahead with it. Now, me having a very limited understanding on what manhood was, right? Um, excuse me, caused a lot of things to go awry. It caused confusion. It caused um, not only confusion on my part, but confusion on her part as well, right? She was a little older than me, I think about a year and a half or so. But she was experienced in life, not necessarily sexually, but she had some things happen to her, right? And I didn't figure these things out. I didn't know what questions to ask her. Um, while we was courting, I didn't know these things, right? I didn't understand these things. Some things I probably wanted to ask her, but I didn't because I'm afraid of the consequence, right? And I'm being intimate with this girl. We're having sex and shit like that. You get what I'm saying? And this is my first regular piece of, you feel me? It's my first regular piece of thing. I'm not trying to let that go. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't ask about background. I didn't ask about family history. I didn't ask about none of these things, right? Some of these things were on my mind, but I just didn't ask, right? My thought process was, I'm what, 22 at the time, 23. I don't want to lose this thing, this, my little regular piece of, you know what I'm saying? And so these things just kind of, you know, went over my head, went over her head. Um, and so here's how I didn't know anything about male leadership, right? My father was there, but I don't know if he was always present in the way I feel like he should have been now, looking back at the time. I don't know if he was if he taught me the things that I needed um as a man, right? Uh that I needed to navigate this thing called life. I don't know if he pushed me as hard as he should have pushed me, right? But this is me now looking back. And because of that, now let me throw this in there before I continue. He did say, "Hey, you know what, son? I don't think you should get married right now." Right? And he did like break it down to me, his reasons why I was hard headed, plus I was getting some regular coochie. Um, and I think that was the determining factor uh, on me deciding to get married, right? And we went forward with it. Now, like I said, I don't think he taught me the things that I should have known before um, I got married. I went to her father and, hey, I want to marry your daughter, and yeah, he said yeah and all this shit. But again, it was just me being safe, me feeling like I'm humbling this girl on a regular basis. We need to seal the deal. We ended up having my we ended up actually having two. One she miscarried, and the other, that would have been my son. But another, which is now my oldest daughter, right? But me not understanding the things that I needed to as a man, leadership, right? Um, Getting the trade, um, uh, being authoritative, being uh, um, uh, what's these masculine traits, right? Being secure in my word, being a man of my word, um, me being uh, uh, um, vocal. You get what I'm saying? Me being all these things, me having a spiritual understanding of life as well as a natural understanding of life, right? These things weren't necessarily taught. So I'm just, I'm out there trying to figure things out. You get what I'm saying? And so, um, you know, we unfortunately didn't work out, right? And I'm highly against divorce, right? I'm against it, right? I get into relationships for the long haul, right? And I'm always in that mindset. Why? Because I'm safe. You know, at the time I was safe. I was being the version of a man that I felt like I should be. Work hard, um, pay the bills, cater to your woman, shit like that. You get what I'm saying? And I think that damaged me a lot. Um, but if we look at my patterns from high school to working to playing ball, right? All these things, uh, getting out of college and all these things have, at the time I didn't see the traits, right? I didn't see me not completing the things that I wanted to do, me not being vocal. I didn't understand it. You know, I just knew that I just wanted to move on. You get what I'm saying? Which is a bad quality to have, a not so great quality to have as a man. You get what I'm saying? The man you pick and you figure out what it is you want to do and you figure out how to go do it, right? And that's how you sustain yourself, right? You can't be this fickle wishy-washy type of dude, because we are, and I'll get into this, we are created to be leaders. We are created to be the head, right? We're created to be the builders of community. You can't be a double-minded person while you do these things. But at the time, again, I had no idea, right? I'm out there trying to figure this stuff out on my own. All right, and just let me give you a little background about her, right? I'm not going to say her name, but um, she had a rough life. You get what I'm saying? Me as a man not having a spiritual understanding of what life is and what can I do to help, or how can I, um, or even if I should help, right? She had been, taken advantage of. She had her innocence taken away from her forcefully. You understand what I'm saying? And um, which I found out later. Her and my mom had a conversation, and my mom never told me what the conversation was. I actually found out through another source, but I was not prepared mentally. I was not prepared spiritually to take on those type of that type of spirit. I was not ready to take on those type of that type of upbringing in another person, right? And be effective in how I deal with that other person, right? I was not. I'm still trying to figure out myself. Um, but I mean, long story short, that relationship did not work out. You understand what I'm saying? We ended up getting divorced after my daughter, right? And we went through this whole child support thing. I became a statistic. Cliche shit, right? And I didn't, not necessarily what I wanted to do, but again, I'm out there trying to figure shit out on my own. You know, we all know the game, the child support, the splitting up, the custody shit. We all know that stuff, right? And that ended up being an extremely toxic relationship, right? On both parts, right? And we'll talk about that for some other time, right? But that was an extremely toxic relationship. All right. Fast forward a few years after that, um, I met someone else, not 100% divorced yet. But I, we, started the paperwork, and we went to court and did all the things for the child support and the custody. um but for some reason the divorce wasn't final. I'm already paying child support and all, doing all these things, right? And I figure, hey, that's it, and I knew, um in my mind, that divorce was not finalized at the time, and I never followed up with it. Right? I became comfortable. I became, stagnant. I became, um, I just let we weren't together. We weren't living together. Any of that stuff, right? And I just never followed through with it. Well, when I met uh, this other girl, who eventually became my second wife, right? Not jointly, not two wives at one time, but the person I married after my first wife, right? Well, a lot of the traits in her were the exact same thing that I experienced with my first um wife. All right. And again, I'm in a state where I still haven't grown to understand what life is when it comes to dealing with the opposite sex. I'm still at the point where I'm not necessarily growing um as a man. And so, because I'm safe, because I met them, here's another thing too. I didn't even meet her like face to face. Right, I met her online. Right, that's how that's how much of a punk I was. Right, I didn't even meet her face to face. I met her online. Right, like when I say I didn't meet her face to face, meaning I didn't approach her when I saw her on the street and like, hey, blah 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 blah, what's up, blah, 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 let me get your number, all this other shit that we as men do. um I met her on a website, right? And we began to talk. We began, and again, this this I guess fear, right? This fear of questioning things when I see red flags, questioning things to gain understanding, questioning things when I want to know more, right? I'm still not at the point where I'm doing that. And so, as we progress in our relationship, I'm starting to see a lot of the same shit that I saw when, I was married the first time. You get what I'm saying? But I'm getting some coochie. I'm getting some coochie, and it. I'm feel like I'm humbling this girl again, and I feel like I'm liking this girl, and and we should, take the next steps. Now, we didn't get married right away. We got married a couple of years after, 2 3 years after, right? Obviously I couldn't get married because I still was married at the time, but I ended up going through and following through with the divorce and making that final. And so, when we continue to progress in our relationship, I'm starting to find things out that she too was, you know, taken advantage of. She had her innocence taken away prematurely before she was, you know, spiritually able to deal with that type of trauma, right? And I don't think at any age you are, uh, um, able to deal with someone uh, taking your innocence away. I'm trying not to say the R word, but no one is really prepared to to deal with that because it's not their choice to give it away. It's been forcefully taken, right? And she had a lot of the same traumas as, you know, my first wife. And I was still not in a place to where I could start to understand and help heal and be able to deal with those things, right? I can't take on those spirits. I'm still pretty young now. My second wife was uh, uh, about the same age as my first, right? I'm younger. Um, I, this doesn't even matter, but they're both Leos, right? So I don't necessarily believe in that astrological shit, but hey, they were both Leos, and I think what two of my daughters are Leos. Shit, but uh, we ended up having two daughters, right? And that relationship, it seemed better externally, right? It presented itself better to the public, right? Um, it presented itself better to my family, her family, well, her, you know, who she called family because she had been through the system and all this other shit, but it presented itself better. It was much more calm. Now, when I say toxic with the past relationship, that shit was toxic, right? We riding bikes up and down the street, driving. We were doing all this shit, yelling at each other, 12 o'clock at night. It's like it was toxic, right? This one was a lot more calm. It was a lot more subtle, but it was still pretty toxic. You understand what I'm saying? Because it was a silent toxic, right? Things, we didn't necessarily talk about things that I should have brought up, things that were bothering me, things that were bothering her. I think we were both um in a state of mind to where we wanted peace, but we were holding a lot of secrets in, and we weren't forthright with each other, right? Um, and these are and things I should have brought up, about family and about family history and about uh, where she was and spiritually where she was mentally and things like that. You know what I mean? Things I wasn't as effective as a leader at trying to lead the relationship in a correct direction. And I, it that relationship ended up not working out too. You get what I'm saying? And we ended up divorcing. We had two daughters, and I'm on child support for that shit. Well, was on or I got on child support. And we divorced. And I'm still this statistic. You get what I'm saying? And being a typical guy who didn't think of himself as this typical guy. Here I am, I wasn't even 30 yet. And I had been married twice, 3 children, child support, but I had all these aspirations I was afraid to take action on. Right? I was heavy into music. I didn't mention that. I wanted to be, a producer, right? And I took steps to do that. I'm pretty dope. And we were doing that, and I was trying to promote other people things, and I'm producing for other people, and I built up a clientele. Um, and they're out there doing a thing, and I wanted to be, a quote unquote rapper and all this stuff, and a producer, and I'm writing songs, and I'm pretty dope, but I'm not charging anybody any money to do this stuff. I'm charging some people. I would tell people to, give me what you can when you can, and I'm not taking steps to really learn the game. You understand what I'm saying? Um, but that's the music thing, and we'll talk about that some other time. But that's just another example of how I didn't like really drive um understanding and learning. You get what I'm saying? Um, to really get what I really wanted out of what I was doing at the time. And so, like I said, that relationship ended. Okay. Now, my family, here's where some uh here's where some things here's a little background about me. My family was heavy in the church, right? Heavy religious, right? And I've always had questions about it, right? And I think this is where I get a lot of my morale from, because I'm humbling these women. Now I have to make, these commitments to them, which it's not a bad thing to want that, right? It's not a bad thing um to do that. It's a good thing, but the vetting process of who you are humbling, the vetting process and proving process of when you do humble them, um, it really helps if you have parents there to really guide you in these things. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't think I didn't necessarily. I probably would have had it had I made the effort to ask, as opposed to acting in my own lust. You get what I'm saying? But I figured it was the right thing to do. I'm humbling these girls, and I feel like I need to make that step and make our whatever our relationship was more official, and then that was ultimately marriage both times, right? And both those times ended in um a not so desirable result. Obviously, divorce, child support, me just, walking around believing I'm more than what I am, but not really producing the results. I'm producing the results of a typical baby daddy. You understand what I'm saying? I'm producing these results that I didn't really want. I didn't want to be this uh um uh this statistic, right? I didn't want to fit into that box. I didn't want to be just the typical hood nigga, because I saw myself higher than that, right? I just didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know what steps to take to get to the point where I wanted to be, which I felt like, and this is where I felt like would have been guidance specifically from my father would have been very, very helpful into my upbringing, right? Like I said, I was acting out what I felt like a man should be, right? Now, I'm not saying my dad failed or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I felt like the guidance. I've always had access to my dad, but the guidance in life and having that and being taught that ability to choose and that ability to prove and that ability to be a man of your word and that ability to hold the fort down and to be spiritually sound and to be mentally sound and to be physically sound and to be a go-getter, right? I that was not there. And so I'm following this path of my thoughts based on my religious upbringing, based on what I'm watching on TV, based on, all that stuff. You get what I'm saying? Because I've always been a person of morale, but I had, I had, oh, I guess I've been a person of morale externally, but internally, I believe my spirit was disintegrating, right? My soul was disintegrating because I wasn't externally who I was internally, right? They didn't match up. You get what I'm saying? And I don't feel like that was taught to me at the level it should have been taught. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, no fault to, my dad, but when I'm looking back now and I'm walking through life, learning and understanding and how to become um these things that I desire and how to be more vocal and how to be um a man, you know what I'm saying? When I'm looking back, had I had that, I would probably be in a different position. You understand what I'm saying? And so, religiously, um, I was a follower, right? I saw my family doing things and I did them, right? I had all these questions about. Let me tell you. So we grew up apostolic, Pentecostal, whatever. If you don't know anything about that, it's what you would call holiness, right? And I've always had questions about it, though. Just things about the speaking in tongues. I've always had questions about a lot of the things that they believe, right? And I ultimately left the apostolic faith, and I wanted to figure things out on my own. Now, this is something else that should have been, I guess, taught to me. These are biblical matters that should have been taught to me, but I ultimately left that. I left there. I left the apostolic faith, and then I became a Baptist, right? Um, I went to Kojic Church. I studied biblical matters with Kojic Baptist Apostolic. I've listened to Mormons talk. I've uh, read and studied so many different things, right? And I considered myself a, after leaving the church or leaving congregations, I consider myself a spiritual human being, right? But I'm so mixed up because, again, here's that mindset: I couldn't choose, right? I knew I wanted to get some things right. I knew I wanted to be um fervent in my faith, but I all these questions and all these different ideologies and spiritual systems just kept arising in me, right? Because I'm looking for truth. I'm looking for who it is that I want to be, and ultimately it led to a lot of confusion within me, right? And as a man, if you're confused about a ton of things, right, you're going to be confused um on in every aspect of your life, right? You if you're confused spiritually, you're going to be confused in every other walk, relationship wise, career wise. You can become confused in all these other walks of life if you're confused in one area, right? When you're out there and you can't find yourself as a man, right? You're not going to be able to grasp these basic. You're not going to be able to find your purpose. I'll put it that way. You understand what I'm saying? And so, give me 1 second. Let me take a swig. And when you are a man without a purpose, what good are you to society? And this is where I was, okay? What good are you? What good are you to society when you cannot fulfill your purpose, right? Here I am, can't find my way in school. I can't find my way after school. I can't find my way career wise in I can't find my way relationship wise. I can't find my way faith wise, and I'm like a vagabond, right? I'm like I'm like Cain, if you will, right? I'm just out there wandering. I'm groping each way, trying to figure things out for myself. And there was no guidance. I can't stress that enough. There was just no strong guidance for me, right? Well, at some point I began to at some point I began to really want to figure this stuff out because I don't like the direction my life is headed, especially spiritually, right? Because I was a real religious person, right? And I wanted to figure those things out, right? I've always had questions that I felt no one can answer. Speaking in tongues, baptism, why does Christ look white? Why is Christ white everywhere? I've always wanted to know these things, right? And so I begin to like really find or really do a deep search of who I was, right? And what I wanted to do, right? When my second marriage ultimately failed, um there there came this deep, deep depression, right? I was The marriage had broken up, right? And both marriages brought some sort of sadness, right? When they both walked away, right? And and when I'm looking back on why, it was because my mind was everywhere, right? I'm just following all these different understandings to life with nothing really keeping me straight and narrow. You get what I'm saying? I can't effectively lead. I can't be a man of my word. I can't um set my house in order. I can't get my desired results from my partner, my wife, right? I can't get it. And when women when women see that weakness, when women see that you are none of the things that they by nature require a man to be, they will run over you. You get what I'm saying? When I'm jellyback and when I'm weak and when I can't say no and when I'm laughing at everything and I'm super bashful and I'm trying to cater to them and I'm buying them things and I'm doing all these things that people today will call simps do, right? When I'm doing all that stuff, right? They don't respect that, right? They don't want that. What they want is someone strong that can give direction and someone strong that they can follow. And I was none of that. You know what I'm saying? And so they sought out elsewhere what I could not provide. Was it right? No. Um and both times I found both divorces is what I mean when I say both times. I found myself groveling. Right? Oh, baby, don't leave. Oh, baby, come home. Oh, baby, this. Baby, we got a family. Baby, you my wife. Baby, 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 please. Baby, 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 please. Baby, 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 please. Ain't that what Spike Lee was saying? Baby, baby, please. Baby, baby. I was that type of dude, right? No confidence, very low self-esteem. Um, and it led to after my second divorce, it led to this huge, huge, huge depression. And I'm like, what the freak is going on here? Internally, right? Externally, I'm trying to hold myself together. I got 3 children, 3 girls at this time. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just trying to find my way. Like I said, I'm a vagabond out here. I'm paying all this money in child support, and I'm trying to keep jobs and uh, do all these things and trying to keep up with visitation and Like, I'm a fucking mess. Excuse my language, but I'm a mess. I'm a mess internally. You know what I'm saying? Um, when my second wife left, let me go back to my first wife, because this is you guys are going to see a pattern here. When my first wife left, mind you, she was a real messy person, right? Internally, which manifested itself externally, right? She couldn't keep the house clean. She instead of putting things in its proper place, she would uh, um, symbolically sweep things under the rug. You're right, symbolically and in reality, she would put things in a closet. Her car was just a freaking mess, right? She was an extreme hoarder. You get what I'm saying? And our house was dirty and nasty all the time, and I didn't come from that. All right, my mom and my oldest sister was some of the cleanest people you can ever meet in your life, right? But my second wife, she was cleaner externally, but she had those same hoarding traits, right? She had this box of stuff that she carried with her. Now, she was when I met her, I didn't know at the time when we really met, but I figured it out and found out she was without a home permanently. And so I let her move in with me, right? And she had all this stuff with her that she would just carry wherever she went, right? And I get it. She was, she had been through the foster system and all these things. And, she had things that she did not want to get rid of, right? So when she left, just like when my first wife left, they left all this junk, right? That I didn't have the heart to be like, hey, take your shit, right? They left all this junk. All right. And so when I met my second wife, we married once we did all that stuff. When she came, all the remnants of the junk that my first wife left, she started to notice laying around the house and in closets and all this. Eventually I ended up, throwing a lot of that stuff away, cleaning up and getting that stuff out of my house. When my second wife left, it was the same thing. When she left, she actually took all the goodly things that she thought were of value to her with her, and everything she did not believe was valuable to her or that can help her in any kind of way, she left with me. And it's at the time, right? I'm the shittiest person you can ever meet, right? Spiritually. And I did not understand the significance. I only cleaned my home because my second wife was like, hey, it's all this shit with her name on it. We need to throw this stuff away. That's the only reason I cleaned it. I didn't understand the importance of cleaning out your home spiritually, if y'all catching my drift, right? And when my second wife left, she did the same thing, but she took a lot of the goodly things, right, and left everything that she didn't see a value of use to her. She left them with me, and again, I spent a lot of time after she left with that shit just hanging around, and without the understanding of why I needed to clean my house, that shit just, it lingered there, and I did not understand why I allowed it to stay there. I came to the realization eventually, because my internal home was a fucking mess too. You get what I'm saying? And I didn't come to that realization until I found myself crying, always listening to these sad ass music. No, no direction, no guidance, no, no path to lead me out of that slumber I was in. This slumber that I had, that when you think of it, I'd been in since high school, right? And because of my upbringing in the church, I started to seek deeper meaning to life. And I wanted to understand. I wanted to refocus, right? I wanted to get things right. Okay. So when I began to come out of that slumber, the very first thing I did, I gathered up all of my ex's stuff, all the things that she felt that were no value to her, that she wanted to just keep with me because she saw me as a trash can, right? Just here, I'm gonna take all the valuable stuff. I'm gonna leave the trash with you. She saw me in that manner. I took all that stuff. I figured out where she lived. She had some papers laying around the house that had her new address and all that shit on it. So I packed all that shit up, took it to her house, left it on her porch. Right? That was the beginning point of that phase of my life, right? Like, let me fucking exhale. Let me take a deep breath and really figure this stuff out. And so, because of my religious upbringing, one of the second things I did was I really began to dive into biblical understanding, right? I really began to dive into who I was and where I come from a biblical standpoint. I started to dive into what my purpose was in life, right? What am I here to do? What should I be doing? How do I refocus? How do I get back on, or get on track? Not even back on track, but how do I get on track? Right? And I had started to come into some groups and understandings about, people would call them Hebrew Israelites or whatever, right? That's what the majority of the population would call them, right? and they begin to speak this thing that I had never learned, in in several groups. I'm not going to name any, but they begin to talk about this law that I had never understood. I at all my years, all my studying with different religious groups or different denominations, no one had ever spoke to me anything about law, right? About a way to conduct yourself in a community setting, in a personally, right? How you conduct yourself when it comes to um the Most High, how you conduct yourself when it comes to having a wife, how you conduct yourself with children, and ultimately how you conduct yourself as a man, right? These things were never really taught. Things like having a purpose before you become intimate, having a purpose or having your ish together before you um go out looking for a significant other. Things that I had never understood in my life, right? Having rules and regulations in place so that when you get off track, you have a refocus point, right? And I really dove into the doctrine because they taught the law, they taught the law, they taught the law, they taught the law. Like, you have to obey the law. And I just really dove into it, right? And I dove into it so much that I began to see where I was falling off. And without that correction of understanding what it is I need to be doing as a man, I would probably be still lost. Right? Here's one of the biggest lessons that I learned, and probably the biggest that helped me refocus, right? Is when I started to see how the law and um how order was set from the very beginning, even with Adam and Eve, right? So here's my understanding in what I believe to be true. So before Eve was given to Adam, God did some wonderful things. He gave Adam a habitation, right? He gave Adam a job, and he gave him rules, right? Which is ultimately the breath of life, right? Which is understanding, because once he breathed the breath of life into him, that breath of life was not only physical life, but understanding about the world around him. Adam had a job. That job was to keep and the garden, right? And Adam's habitation was what you know as the Garden of Eden. So once he had a place to live, 2, he had a job to keep it, right? 3, he had to name all the animals, which means he had to put all the things in order. You understand what I'm saying? And all these animals had 2 components to them, a male component and a female component. You get what I'm saying? And they all had order, which Adam gave to him. So when the Bible refers to Adam keeping the garden, right, it's not only, tilling the ground and working, right, which was also a punishment for him, but it his thing was to set everything in order, give the animals names, right, which is ultimately um leadership, right? He gave him authority over this entire beautiful garden. He gave him authority over his home. You get what I'm saying? And Adam needed all these things before God gave him a woman. Right? And in my mind, once all this is being revealed to me, right? And I'm like, whoa, this is starting to make like some sense to me. This is kind of crazy, right? I'm looking at this with deeper eyes, right? And mind you, I have been baptized as a Baptist. I've been baptized as an apostolic. I've been baptized, um, uh, so called with fire and the Holy Ghost, what they call it. I no longer call it that. I call it a spirit. I think a ghost refers to something dead. I've spoken in tongues. I've done all these things, but I was not getting any understanding until I started hearing these groups come up talking about, hey, the law. This is how you structure your life. It's according to the law. And it's churches teach, especially churches that I've been to, that the law is done away with. But when I start studying the law, things like don't lust after your neighbor's wife, don't lust after anything of your neighbors, don't have any other gods, right? Don't steal, right? Before you marry, make sure you go to the father and you do whatever due diligence that is required to take his daughter to take his that's required to take his daughter, things like dowries and things like that. I'm like, this is done away with. Like, how can this be? These are laws on how to survive in a community, right? These are laws on how to conduct your personal life, your uh uh life, when you're dealing with your neighbor. These are laws on how to ceremonially keep your body and your mind clean, right? And I'm like, how in the world are these things all done away with? It can't be, right? And so when I'm looking at Adam and Eve again, God gave Adam a home, responsibility, rules, a job. He gave him all these things before he gave him his wife. And I'm looking like, what the hell? I'm out here groping, trying to figure things out, and my focus is on, excuse me, my focus is on not ordering my life the way that the Most High God ordered Adam before he gave him a wife, right? And, excuse me, let me take a swig. Maybe I should be drinking water, but hey, it is what it is. But I'm the way Adam's life was set up before he was given a wife to care for. And as I began to look over my life, I had not been ordered. I had not been structured. I had not been given an understanding. I have not been given rules. I had not been given guidance before I decided to take on a wife. Both times, right? I had not been given spiritual law, right? Everything in me was chaotic. And this is ultimately why my marriage has ended so chaotically, right? It would be easy for me to be like, oh, they were chaotic and that's why they did things and this and this and that and them and them and them and them. But when I came into the understanding and when I read these words, right, and when I saw how God, the Most High, structured Adam's life before he gave him a woman, it became like this eye-opening thing, right? And like I said, I was not structured. I was not given guidance. And now when I'm looking back on those things, I'm wondering, well, why the hell not? Why and what the hell was, was, why wasn't these things taught to me? Why wasn't these basic principles taught to me? You get what I'm saying? I had to have order over myself before I can bring someone else into it. You understand what I'm saying? And because it was not that way, um, it created anarchy. I had nothing to live by. I had nothing to teach. I had nothing to refocus on if I became astray. And I'm not going to get into it now, but you guys will hear and understand more things, right? But I am so grateful, right, that the schoolmaster has taught me how to order my life before I can bring someone else into it, right? And this is ultimately what we as men supposed to model ourselves after, right? And here's the thing: when God gave Adam all these things, he ultimately taught and shared everything he had with his wife. You feel what I'm saying? And that, see, his wife was made as a helpmeet to him. She was made as a support system. Adam was given authority, Adam was given leadership over, but his wife was there as the one to have his back. Now, we all know the story after the deceiver, which is ultimately the world, comes in and tries to freak your mind up. We all know that story, and we are all products of it, and we are all results of it, and it is what it is. But we, as men, I'm gonna leave you with this thing. As men, before you invite someone else into your domain, into your home, into your place of residence, you first must have it ordered and structured in the way that the Most High has set up for you, right? You have to have it ordered and structured so that you can bring someone in under order and structure. If your mind is chaotic, it is unfair to the other person to bring them into a chaotic situation. You understand what I'm saying? And it is ultimately unfair to you because you haven't figured out these things. Our purpose in life is to find order and to teach it to those who support us. Our purpose in life as men, outside of being protectors and builders of communities and providers and leaders, right? Our purpose in life is to build homes. The first home that we should build is ourselves. You understand? And then we can invite someone else in. Anyway, guys, this has went on for about an hour and a half. Y'all do me a favor. Y'all share. Y'all like, subscribe. Get this out. If you don't like the message, hey, don't like, don't subscribe, don't share. But let's try and get this out as much as possible. You understand what I'm saying? I hope this has brought some sort of understanding and help to someone who is possibly going through whatever I've laid out, who, especially our young men, who is trying to find themselves, leave the sex alone, leave the women alone until you have thoroughly built your home and it is inhabitable. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, man, this is the natural order. That is the natural order. I'm Big Z. I'll hit y'all up next time.